Good morning, Steelers Nation. Last night I was able to rewatch the Steelers versus Eagles game, and I've come away with 8 takeaways here after rewatching this football game here and stuff that I'm taking away after this Week 15 loss. So today we're going to be putting a bow on that Week 15 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. Before we get into the content today, where are you guys at? Let me know down there in the comments section. What is your concern level after the Steelers loss versus the Eagles yesterday afternoon? Put it on a scale of 1 to 10 for me down there in the comments section. 1 being not concerned at all, to 10 meaning I am absolutely panicking. So first here, let's take some stock in terms of where the Steelers are ranking on both sides of the football. Offense with Russell Wilson, and then on the defensive side of the ball throughout the first 15 games, or first 15 weeks, I should say, of the 2024 NFL season. With Russell Wilson as your quarterback, the Pittsburgh Steelers are still ranking in the top 10 in points per game at 26.5. Obviously, the 13 points yesterday put a damper on that. Last week, heading into last week, they were top 5 in points per game. Now they go down to 8th. Yards per game, still in the top 15, but it obviously went down in that category as well. The yards per play has dipped below the top 15 now. That currently ranks 16th at 5.3 yards per play. Third down offense is currently ranking 13th. They're still 31st in red zone touchdown percentage, and then they're still ranking 6th in giveaways with just 12, despite the Najee Harris fumble. Then on defense, they're still playing very good football, guys. They're still top 6 there in points per game, allowing less than 19 points per game right now. The Steelers defense as a whole, like it has throughout the season, is ranking in the top 10 in most categories, except for red zone percentage right now, where they currently rank in the top 15. And they still, after getting another 2 takeaways yesterday versus the Eagles, they still rank first in the National Football League in takeaways with a whopping 30 takeaways. Then, of course, yesterday we got the news on our post-game show that T.J. Watt suffered a low ankle sprain. If you're wondering how long it takes usually to recover from a low ankle sprain, it depends on the pain severity and all these different things, but it usually takes a 1 to 3 week recovery. So this is definitely the Steelers dodging a major bullet here with T.J. Watt. Of course, last year he got injured in the season finale against the Baltimore Ravens, did not play in the postseason game against Buffalo. It definitely had that eerie feeling when he went to the turf yesterday in the fourth quarter, but thank God it looks like he's going to be okay for postseason play, and we're hoping TJ gets back to full health soon. And, you know, to keep things in perspective here, the Steelers do not win football games when TJ Watt doesn't play. If you want to know TJ's impact on this football team, in the 11 games in his career where he has been out with injury, the Steelers have a 1-10 all-time record. So, I mean, if TJ's not going to play this weekend against the Ravens, and it's certainly pointing to that being the case, I mean, that definitely isn't something in the Steelers' favor if you think that the Steelers are going to win here in Week 16 and lock up the AFC North. So now let's get to the film takeaways after yesterday's loss to kind of put a bow on the game from yesterday. First thing here, I didn't mention Russell Wilson in my post-game reaction yesterday, and honestly, there wasn't much to say about Russell Wilson and his performance versus the Eagles. The Steelers really tried to hone in on running the football, and they really didn't do a good job of that. We'll talk about that later in the show. But the game plan for the Steelers offense was to get the run game going with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. We'll talk about the reasons why that did not end up being the case for the Steelers offense yesterday. And then, you know, with Russell Wilson in the passing game, they wanted him to get the ball out quickly, and they wanted him to throw it short and not take too many risks throwing the ball down the field. He only threw 5 passes past 10-plus air yards, all right? So that's not a very high percentage of downfield passes for Russell Wilson. And honestly, when he was throwing it down the field, it wasn't all that bad. I mean, the first throw was that pretty bad overthrow to Van Jefferson on the first drive of the game. Then he had a miscommunication with Pat Freiermuth. Then he threw that touchdown to Pat Freiermuth for the lone touchdown on offense on the day. Then he had that flea flicker to Calvin Austin III, which obviously was a success. And by the way, that was the only explosive play on the entire afternoon for the Steelers offense, was that flea flicker. And then he threw a dig over the middle to Mike Williams on a 3rd and forever, and they ended up punting the football after that completion. So only 5 downfield completions or downfield throw attempts. attempts from Russell Wilson yesterday. Not really anything to write home about with Russell Wilson. And honestly, Arthur Smith kind of neutered him a little bit. The Eagles were really playing a lot of too high safety coverages, taking away the deep shot. There wasn't a lot of opportunities for Russell Wilson to throw the ball down the field. And really, the Steelers needed to get the run game going because the Eagles were playing light boxes pretty much the entire game. And despite that, the run game was still terrible. And I think it's time to face facts when it comes to the Steelers' rushing attack. And, this was supposed to be the identity of the offense. And honestly, it's the biggest weakness of the Steelers' offense now. This is not a good running offense. Right now, they currently rank 30th in the league in yards per carry among National Football League teams. And yesterday, they had 3.3 yards per carry, which is just absolutely terrible, guys. And, what's crazy is that the Steelers actually had a higher yards per carry number than the Eagles. The Steelers' run defense yesterday against Saquon Barkley was actually pretty darn good. But, 3.3 is just not going to get the job done on a week-to-week basis. And as a whole here this season, they're ranking 30th in yards per carry at 3.9 yards per carry this year. And, guys, when I look at the film, I think Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren are good running backs. I truly believe that. When I look at the film, it's the offensive line and it is the blocking tight ends not generating enough push and not doing a good enough job executing the blocking schemes to get things going in terms of the run game. So I think that the running backs are good enough here in Pittsburgh, but plain and simply, Arthur Smith and Pat Meyer and all these different guys on the Steelers coaching staff have not done a good enough job getting this offensive line to execute the schemes enough here to have that ground and pound offensive attack that the Steelers want to have here in Pittsburgh. And I do think it's time to face facts here. In order for the Steelers to have success on offense, you need to have Russ be the main engine of the offense, be a distributor, short passes, screen passes, downfield passing when the defense plays up, all these different things. And it's very, very difficult to do that if you're Russell Wilson, if you don't have George Pickens, who is the only dynamic threat on this Steelers offense today, and he's injured, right? So you got Mike Williams, who's big but doesn't run good routes, and you got Calvin Austin III, who does run good routes, but he's tiny and can be completely taken out of the play if he's in press coverage. And then you got guys like Scotty Miller, Ben Skoranek. I mean, Pat Freiermuth is a good tight end, but he's not a great game-changing type of tight end. So without George Pickens, it's definitely tough to play the way the Steelers need to play in order to have offensive success this year. And something that I really didn't like about Arthur Smith's game plan is that the running back screens were completely gone. They tried to get the run game going specifically yesterday against the Eagles, and they kind of went away from the running back screens with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, getting them the ball in space, which had really worked for them in weeks prior, and they just didn't do it at all this week, which I think was a major mistake from a game planning perspective from Arthur Smith. I think in the weeks to come, he needs to do a better job of getting the ball in space to guys like Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris, Calvin Austin III, and when George Pickens gets back, get him the ball in space as well. You got to get your playmakers the ball in space with blockers in front of them. The screen game definitely did that for this offense in weeks prior. They didn't do that this week, and it was a big element that was missing in the offense this week, in my opinion. Another takeaway that I had on offense is that Najee Harris, I think, is more than likely not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler next year. And the reason for that is that obviously they declined his fifth-year option. And, if they're going to bring him back, it sounds like Najee is going to be asking for a large contract if they are going to bring him back. But Najee right now is only averaging 3.9 yards per carry, which currently ranks 40th in the National Football League. And if you're going to be paying Najee Harris top 10 kind of money at the position like he is going to be asking for this offseason, I'm just not sure if his efficiency and yards per carry numbers are necessarily indicative of giving a guy that kind of contract this offseason. And, I think that the reality is with Najee Harris, guys, I don't think it's all his fault. Like I talked about earlier, I think Najee and Jaylen are good enough to have a ground and pound run game. I love the way Najee finishes runs. All right, that's something that he didn't do very well at the beginning of his career. Now he has kind of learned the NFL game, and he has really done a good job fighting for extra yardage this year. But the offensive line has not been good enough to give him space this year, and because of that, the production just isn't worth giving him a large contract at the running back position, especially when you're probably going to have to be giving Russell Wilson a large contract, a multi-year contract this offseason, which is going to take up a lot of the team's cap space this offseason. So predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will Najee Harris be a Steeler next year? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section and predict it for me. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question with a yes or a no. So I want to explain why Mike Williams isn't really working with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense right now, especially with George Pickens out of the lineup. And the reason why that is because Mike Williams is not a number one receiver, okay? You need that dynamic presence on the other side like Keenan Allen when he was back with the Chargers or George Pickens now with Pittsburgh. Mike Williams fits the role of a true X receiver, but he's not a route runner. So pretty much what the defenses are doing to take him away is that they're playing off coverage with a bigger cornerback, no safety help over the top, and Russell Wilson doesn't like to throw in situations where he doesn't have the leverage. And what that off coverage does is it allows defenders to have leverage over Mike Williams. And, I just don't think that he's a sharp enough route runner at this point in his career to kill these cornerbacks on quick slants or digs consistently, which is why he's just not getting the football all that much at this point, especially with George Pickens out of the lineup. And with George out of the lineup here, it really is a perfect storm of not having a good enough run game here, and then you're not having a good enough passing attack here because you don't have the offensive line to execute the run schemes that Arthur Smith is calling up, and then you don't have the receiving talent to be able to get open consistently for Russell Wilson. So right now, without George Pickens, that is exactly why this Pittsburgh Steelers offense absolutely sucks without 14 on the field. When you get George Pickens out there, guys, teams are afraid of his ability to go down the sideline and make an incredible catch in a contested catch situation. They're also afraid of his ability to run the football after the catch. His rack ability is one of the best in the National Football League. And if you want to see the impact of this offense with George Pickens versus no George Pickens, when George Pickens and Russell Wilson have been on the field together this year, this team is averaging 389 yards per game. Without George Pickens these last 2 weeks, the Steelers offense is averaging 215. Without George Pickens, everything closes up. Defenses are not afraid of the deep ball, which of course makes things worse for the running game. Everything absolutely collapses without George Pickens, which is exactly why me and other Steelers content creators were saying you have to get another guy at receiver if you want to make sure that you're good, even with George Pickens' injury. So coming up here, I got my thoughts on the defense and the defensive performance from yesterday's loss. But before I get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Game Time, which is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for the sports, music, comedy, and theater in your area. And guys, we still got 2 more Steelers home games at Acrisure Stadium this year. We've already had a number of people that watch this show reach out to me, say, hey, I got some great ticket prices from our friends at Game Time to go see a Steelers game this year. Thank you so much for letting me know about Game Time. So, hey, you can be that next person. You guys can download the Game Time app today and use their brand new feature called Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. All you have to do is select the Game Time Picks button when you go into an event you want to go see, and Game Time automatically filters through their entire database of tickets to find you the best tickets with the best prices and the best views so that you and your family can get the best possible deals to the event that you want to go see. What I love about the Game Time app and why it's the only ticketing app I have on my phone right now is you get the lowest price guarantee on any ticket to any event. All-in pricing so you don't get slapped with a crazy fee at checkout, and flash deals so you can get even cheaper tickets the closer you wait to game time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Your first purchase, terms apply. It's just for that first purchase, guys. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Shifting over to the defensive side of the ball here, and plain and simply, guys, the Steelers need to tackle better. Now, I think that missing Deshaun Elliott definitely hurt a little bit. He's been kind of their open space tackler type of guy, but the cornerbacks in particular for the Steelers yesterday were not very good. As a team, they had 16 missed tackles versus the Eagles, many of them coming on crucial third down situations. They were not very good in those weighty down situations. That's another thing, another takeaway that I have on this defense, man, is you got to be better in the weighty downs, third and fourth down situations. And plain and simply, guys, the Steelers defense got their ass handed to them by the Eagles offense in these situations yesterday afternoon, where the Eagles went 11 for 18 on third and fourth down yesterday. All right, that's an over 60% conversion rate. That's just not good enough, man. Plain and simply, this team is better than that. This team is ranking in the top 10 in third down conversion rate on defense for a reason. They're usually very good at getting teams off the field. Not this week, man. The Eagles absolutely dominated. And a big reason for that, if I'm being honest with you, when the Steelers did get the Eagles into a third and long, maybe a third and medium situation, they didn't do a good job of putting the right corners on the right receivers. All right, and what I mean by that is you pretty much, in my opinion, I think the game plan should have been to have Joey Porter Jr. travel with A.J. Brown the entire game. All right, when you have a guy like A.J. Brown that's as big as he is, how good he is after the catch, you can't have a smaller corner like Dante Jackson, James Pierre, Beanie Bishop Jr. on A.J. Brown. You got to have that big physical presence on A.J. the entire game if you want to corral him. And honestly, Joey Porter Jr., when he was on A.J. Brown, he had his losses, but he also had some very good reps against him. And, there was just multiple instances on very big downs, on third downs, all these different things where you had a Dante Jackson or James Pierre, a smaller corner on A.J. Brown, and they just throw it to A.J., and he just completely bulldozes over the guy, and he picks up a first down. It's poor personnel usage, and that was a big reason why the Eagles were able to do so much. Now, listen, guys, when it comes to the big picture, I'm not panicking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, but obviously improvements need to be made. All right, you need to get T.J. Watt back healthy. You need to get George Pickens back healthy. You need to run the football better. The offensive line needs to do a better job getting their blocks and executing their assignments. The receivers need to do a better job getting open for Russell Wilson. Russell needs to not take stupid stacks. There's a lot of different things that didn't go the Steelers' way in this game, but it does appear that everybody that's injured right now that's a starter for the Steelers, T.J. Watt, George Pickens, Deshaun Elliott, Larry Ogunjobi, everybody looks like that they're going to be good enough to go once we get to the postseason, and that's what matters, guys, because the Steelers did lock up their spot in the NFL postseason yesterday with the losses of both the Miami Dolphins and the Indianapolis Colts. So you have clinched your spot. Right now you still have that number 3 spot in the AFC playoff picture, but obviously with the Ravens coming up here, you definitely need to win some of these final 3 games if you want to be crowned AFC North champions. Right now you have a 1-game advantage over the Baltimore Ravens. The Steelers currently sit at 10-4. The Ravens sit at 9-5. And of course, that makes this matchup here in Week 16 on Saturday night extremely, extremely important, because if the Pittsburgh Steelers can once again have the Baltimore Ravens number and win, even with potentially without T.J. Watt, potentially without George Pickens, if the Steelers win this game, they will officially be crowned AFC North champions with 2 games to spare in the 2024 regular season. So this game this weekend is going to be absolutely massive for the Steelers' chances to win the division this year and get that home playoff game that we all want as Steelers fans. So later today, we will be going live here on Steelers Talk. I could potentially have some more takeaways after the All-22 comes out this afternoon. And then also we'll be previewing Saturday night's matchup versus the Baltimore Ravens here on the show. So Coop and I, we're going to be going live at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time later this afternoon. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now and join us at 5:30 for more Steelers content here on Overreaction Monday.